Cue the Britney Spears track. We're ready to talk about some very toxic romances today because that is truly one of my favorite things to read. If it is a toxic romance between two or sometimes even three people, sold. I live, breathe, love the toxicity. And I'm very excited to talk to you today about some of my favorite toxic romances. I think I have 8 on this list. Honestly, I did have to narrow it down because I just have so many. I read a lot of toxic romances. I feel like when I started reading After by Anna Todd, with that being my first romance book, it definitely shaped my reading taste and made me love toxic romances, and I haven't lost that trait ever since. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So I always do long intros. Let's not do that today. Let's go ahead and jump in with one of my favorites that I'm going to talk about on this list. And that is The Words by Ashley Jade. This book is just phenomenal. I love it. Okay, so this one follows Lennon and Phoenix. And Phoenix and Lennon, so this is a second chance rock star, plus size heroine, friends to enemies to lovers, romance, did I say second chance, forced proximity. There's so much going on in this book and it's a thick boy, so let's get into it. So Phoenix is a rock star, but at the beginning of this book, he is in high school, he's trying to graduate high school, and he's in a band, and he is really set on becoming a musician because he doesn't really have a lot of other prospects, but in order to graduate, he needs to pass this one class, so the teacher arranges for Lennon, a very smart student, to help tutor Phoenix and get him to the place that he needs to be for graduation. And Lennon is really shy, she's bullied a lot, she's plus size, and just girls really pick on her a lot. Guys don't really pay her a lot of attention. However, when her and Phoenix start getting to know each other over these tutoring sessions and beyond, they start forming a connection and they start, a little bit of a relationship, but it's not really public knowledge. But then I don't really want to give too much away. So something happens, they both go their separate ways, and now years later, Phoenix is a touring successful musician. However, he is spiraling deeper and deeper and deeper after an incident happened, and his management, his band, they're like, we need to get him on the right track. He keeps on sleeping with all of his sober coaches. They're like, we can't keep a sober coach to save our lives. So we need to find someone who can be Phoenix's babysitter that he can't seduce. And the friends are like, bingo, go find Lennon. And they find Lennon, and she really is in a situation that she needs the money. She reluctantly ends up agreeing to go on tour and be Phoenix's sober companion. And obviously, when they get back together, there are a lot of harboring resentments between these two, a lot of issues. And, they got to figure it all out on the road. It's amazing. It's a long book, but I'm telling you, every single moment of this story is important to it. I love this book. It was one of the first books that I read last year and has continued to be a favorite of mine. And Lennon and Phoenix, they're soulmates, but they're so freaking toxic together. It's amazing. Next up, another book that I read last year that I quickly fell in love with. And again, these two actually... Would it be safe to say that they are the most toxic on the list? I'd say almost. I'd say they're fighting for the first spot with maybe one other couple that we'll get into, but that is Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. So this one is a second chance contemporary romance as well. So this one follows BJ and Magnolia. So at the beginning of this book, we find out that BJ and Magnolia used to be together. They're not together right now, but they both still love each other, but they can't get past certain things in their past to kind of get back together. And that being that BJ cheated on Magnolia, and she's never really gonna let him forget it, even though she wants him, he wants her. They just both are very stubborn, and they truly do things to hurt or incite the other person a lot. This is so frustrating. Just when you think they're about to be on the same page, they're not. And it keeps you turning the pages though, because they're so absolutely toxic together. I think they're up there with Hardin and Tessa in terms of the back and forth, the hot and cold, the on and off. That's how much they are back and forth on. But this one, it takes place in London, I think. They're very high society. They're also both billionaires or millionaires. They're both very wealthy, and they both are the talk of gossip. So they're both public figures because they're so rich. And Magnolia is really into fashion, so she definitely, gets her photograph taken a lot, and there's a lot of interest in their relationship. She's the daughter of a record executive, a music executive, and I don't know how BJ has his money, but he's got a crap ton of money, and it's all about their friend group in high society London time, and it's fun. I loved the fashion elements in here. It's just a really fun setting on top of the two of these being absolutely electric together. but also horrible for each other. Like, they are soulmates. I believe that in my heart and soul, but they, oh my God, are like the worst people for each other, but they bring out the best and the worst in each other, which makes it like a really fascinating dynamic and makes it really fun to read. But definitely these two are gonna have you pissed off while reading, just warning you ahead, but it's so good. And their second book, I can't wait for the third one. I'm really, really excited. Next up is a bit of a love triangle one on here, and that is Ecstasy by KV Rose. So this one follows Zara, Eli, and Alex. So Zara is a college student. She was in rehab, that her mother put her in, but she's out and she doesn't really have any interest in staying clean. And Zara is dating Alex, who is this star quarterback, preacher's son, hotshot kind of guy at their university. However, their relationship in and of itself is extremely toxic. They both party a lot. Zara does a lot. I think Alex does drugs too, but they both drink a lot. Like, they just are really not good for each other, like, at all. And I won't even say in this case that I think they are soulmates. I just think they're like bad for each other, but they love each other. And Alex happens to have this roommate, Eli, who Zara has kind of had her eye on a little bit. He's very mysterious, and she's kind of like equally parts intrigued by him, but also kind of like fearful of him a little bit, because he's just like such this enigma. And this book basically is a love triangle between Zara and Alex and Zara and Eli. And oh my God, you might think you know where this book is going, and I promise you, you don't. It's wild. It's such a roller coaster of a time. Zara, at times, you almost wonder, like, at certain points, I'm like, is she a reliable narrator? She is, but sometimes it's hard to, like, be on her side. Like, you're rooting for her to make smart decisions, and a lot of the time she doesn't. It takes her a while to get her stuff together, and especially her and Eli have no problem really, really tiptoeing that fine line of like sneaking around in front of Alex. So there is cheating in this. So obviously if you don't like that, this is not going to be the book for you, because there's a lot of cheating, but it's wild. It's so toxic. And I would say this one is probably one of the darker ones that I've talked about so far. Maybe one of the darker ones on this list. Actually, I have quite a few. I wouldn't say that this is like dark romance, but definitely it's heavier. And it's a very insane time. Okay, next up is another one that I wouldn't consider very dark. I'd say it starts out with a dark encounter, but then the rest of the book is not really that dark, and that's Untouchable by Sam Mariano. So I read this book a couple of months ago, and these two truly are just like so toxic together. But mostly, I will say, a lot of it is on Carter. Carter is a pretty toxic human being, and it's more that then Zoe just like continues to stick around and put up with his toxicity, which, like, fine, do you. So anyways, this one starts out, so they're both in high school and they both live in Texas, and it's like a very heavy football town, football centered culture, like very like these high school football players are gods in a lot of people's opinions because of like their athletic ability. And when one of the members of the football team harasses Zoe and she reports it to the coach and gets the student suspended, there are a lot of people very unhappy with her, Carter included. So this one football player that she got suspended, Carter and one of their other friends end up trapping her in a classroom, and the situation really escalates to like a pretty dark point. And after this interaction, Carter is like, Zoe's gonna be mine. Like, he goes from having this very dark encounter with her to being like, you know what, now she is going to be mine, and she doesn't really have a choice in the matter. And he just like pursues and pursues and pursues until she's finally like, I literally can't get rid of, like, what can I do to get rid of you? And he's like, you can go on a date with me. And it ends up being their romance. Carter is one persistent dude. And here's the thing that I ended up liking about this one, instead of Zoe just kind of like rolling over and going with it, she was more intrigued to figure out the psychological aspect behind Carter, which I was also interested in. There is dub-con and non-con in this book, and I need to like get on board with the thought process of the heroine when dealing with a situation like this. Of course, the garbage people just arrived. Okay, I'm gonna wrap up Untouchable and then I'll take a quick break so that way you guys don't have to hear the noise in the background. But with that said, I just need to like be on board with the psychological aspect, and I really liked getting into Carter's psyche, and that's what Zoe really did, like uncovered, and it ends up being their romance. I did really enjoy this book. My only thing is that it is set in high school, and I just feel like I would have liked it a little bit more if they were in college. I get why it couldn't be, but I feel like I'm just kind of over like them having to like go home to their parents' house. at the end of the day. I don't know, but I did really enjoy like the psychological aspect of it. And let me tell you, Carter's just insanely toxic, and the two of them together are very toxic. But you know, we love to see it though. Okay, they're gone. Let's get back into it. Okay, next up I have The Ritual by Chantal Tessier. So this one, buckle up. This one is just a wild time. So this one follows Blakely and Riot, and it takes place at a university, and Blakely is actually dating another member of this like secret society. However, when they're like, they have this choosing type ceremony where every year this secret society full of men, they have to do all of these different trials in order to be like indoctrinated or like included into the little secret society. And they also get to choose their lady, and that's going to be like their person, their woman for the entire year for them to like kind of do whatever with. And a lot of women actually volunteer. A lot of women want to be involved in this. But Blakely is dating this one dude, and she wants him to pick her as his lady, but that does not end up happening. Riot ends up choosing Blakely to be his lady, and it is very like enemies to lovers, but also like the dude that Blakely was with kind of sucks, so she like is kind of over that fairly quickly, and it ends up being their romance. Here's the thing with this one though, it's very smutty, so like if you want that, here's this. And also it's like dirty, like it's messy, it's very toxic. You like, if you have any triggers, I'd say maybe stay away from this book in terms of like things that go on between the two of them. Again, a lot of dub con. I mean, sometimes, you know, he gives her some stuff to sleep but then doesn't let her sleep. Like, it's a messed up book, so just warning you about that. These two are very toxic. However, it's just one similar to like Sabotage by her, where you just have to like let yourself go for the ride and like enjoy the moment. Like, is it a healthy relationship to look up to? No, but none of these really are. They're toxic for a reason and for our enjoyment, and you know, that's this. And also then you're dealing with like the secret society stuff, which is cool. Next up I have Burn for Me by Sarah Kate. So this one is a student teacher, older woman, younger man book, and definitely enemies to lovers. So this one follows Cullen and Everly. So Everly is a professor, however she used to be a journalist, and she actually wrote this article exposing this one very powerful billionaire for running, I think, was it like a trafficking ring? Like, exposed him for some really horrible things and sent him to jail. And one thing that she remembers from her time writing that article was that the man that she sent to jail, while deservedly so, he had a young son that he then left without a father, and that ended up being Cullen. And now Cullen is 18 and he signs up to be a part of Everly's class, and he is ready to make her pay for upending his life, because not only did his dad go to prison, but then some things happened with his mom, and he has just had a really rough life the past 10 years with his dad being in jail and kind of like having everything upended, and he's ready to make Everly pay for that and pay for exposing him. Not that like he agreed with what his dad was doing, but you know, he's got to get his revenge on Everly, and it ends up being their romance. And here's the thing with Cullen, is that he is a very in-your-face kind of hero. I would say not like as in your face as Carter, but he's like not leaving Everly alone. He is showing up where she does not want him to show up. He is making her do things that she does not want to do, but maybe secretly she does kind of want to do, because she's secretly kind of into Cullen a little bit, and it ends up being their romance. I love this one from Sarah Kate. I feel like obviously Salacious Players is super popular and for a great reason, but this one is a really great standalone from her. I really enjoyed their romance, and especially because like the hate, because even at the beginning when they're hooking up, they still hate each other, but like they both like the way each other looks, and it's fun to read about. I love like when they hate each other so much, but they also like find each other so hot that they can't resist it. Perfect. Next up, now this one I am going to be extremely vague about, because truly I A, don't know how to explain it, and B, when I say you need to go in blind, I mean it, that you need to go in blind. Like, this is not one that you want spoiled for you. Just truly experience the ride yourself, and that is The Devil by Ashley Jade. So this is actually a duet. It's The Devil and the Devil's Advocate. They're both fairly short, so you can like binge them pretty quickly. So this one follows Eden, Kane, and what's the other dude's name? Damien. So here's the thing with this one. So Eden, her mother passes away, and she is left then in the care of her stepfather, or like soon to be stepfather. I don't think maybe like Kane and her mother were fully married, but they were on their way to get married. Kane is involved in politics, and she never really had a strong relationship with her mother growing up because of some like various things that happened. But one thing to note about Eden is that she has agoraphobia, and she is very scared of like going outside, interacting with people, and has really just almost like feels locked in this house. So then when her mother dies, who is really the only people around? Kane, her soon-to-be stepfather. And who is really the only person that she has to rely on? Kane. However, Kane is involved in politics, and there is someone coming after him and ready to run against him and take him down, and that is Damien, an old friend of his, and it ends up being a love triangle. And I'm going to leave it at that. This book took so many turns, this duet as a whole took so many turns, that I was like, who am I supposed to be believing? Do I even believe Eden? Do I believe Kane? Do I believe Damien? Whose side should I be on? Who should I be rooting for her to pick? Like, it's wild. Truly, truly, truly do not look up a single spoiler for this. Just go into it blind and enjoy the ride. So next up, I have Too Late by Colleen Hoover. Yeah, I'm telling you right now, if you like Colleen Hoover's other books, this is not gonna give you like that same kind of energy. Like, it's very, very vastly different than anything that she's ever written before, and it's extremely toxic, and another love triangle here. So this one follows Sloane, Asa, and Carter. So Sloane is a college student, and she has a sibling that has a lot of health issues, and she's kind of the one who's left in charge of their care. So that obviously is a big financial burden on her, but luckily for her, or unluckily for her, her boyfriend, Asa, is all too willing to help pay for the care of her younger sibling. However, with that, like, that care does not come for free. And Asa is a drug dealer, and and Sloane, before she kind of realizes it, she's put herself in a very toxic situation, or not put herself, she's found herself in a very toxic situation, and she doesn't really know how to get out of it, especially with him kind of dangling that care of her younger sibling over her head a little bit. Sloane is just very unhappy with these circumstances, and she ends up meeting Carter in one of her classes and kind of like hits it off a little bit with him, and thinks like, oh, maybe, like, this could potentially be a friend. However, then she realizes that Carter is starting to work for Asa, and she tries to kind of warn him away, knowing that it's like, hey, Asa's not really like the dude you want to be working for, but Carter ends up being involved as well, and it does end up being a love triangle between the three of them. Darkness is very subjective. This is not like, nothing that happened in here was like surprising to me in terms of darkness, but it is dark, especially with like Colleen Hoover's name on it, and things get very toxic, especially the relationship between Asa and Sloane. There is some abuse going on between the two of them, so that just like, make sure that you're checking your trigger warnings before going into this one, because there are some dark things. However, watching, even like her and Carter are not necessarily like great together because of things you find out. I don't know. It's just all around a lot of toxicity going on in this book, but a fun little ride nonetheless. Honestly, here's the thing. I didn't even put this series on my list here because I don't want anyone to get sick of me talking about it, but also I don't care. And when I went out to pull these books off my shelves, I was like, how can I not include them? Because I'd say besides BJ and Magnolia, these two are the most toxic couple that I have listed on this list, and I just have to include them. And that's going to be the Off Balance series by Lucia Franco. Balance is the first one. This is just like the bind up of the three because it was easiest to grab for me. And this one follows Rhea and Kova. If you are new to my channel, then you maybe haven't heard about me talk about this that much, but if you have been around here for a while, I'm sorry. You can just like skip ahead because I have to talk about it. It's my favorite series of all time. So Rhea is a gymnast with hopes of going to the Olympics. However, the gym that she is currently at is not going to get her to the level that she needs. So she asks her father to send her to a new gym, and he ends up calling up his old buddy Kova, who owns a gym and is a former Olympic athlete, and asks if he will train Rhea, and Rhea goes to his gym to start training. And as soon as Rhea gets there, she realizes that she's maybe not at the level as she thinks. And Kova's like, dude, you need to get it together. You are not in the right shape. Like, Olympics, please. Like, what are you even talking about? But she is really determined, and he agrees to be her coach and get her there. And as they become coach-athlete, they also fall in love. But it's obviously a very taboo romance as well because of the big age gap and because of the power dynamic of coach-athlete. However, Kova is not always as much power as he may think he is when it comes to Rhea. And it's just my favorite series of all time, but truly these two are so toxic. They are, in my opinion, the most like soulmatey soulmates that I've ever read in my entire life. However, they also might be the most toxic people I've ever read in my entire life. And their toxicity stretches for 5 books. So like, you're on a long journey with them of hot and cold. They truly do things to hurt the other person and to like get back at the other person and retaliate and then make them jealous and then make up and then get off the same page again and hate each other and love each other. it's wild. It's wild, but I love it with my whole heart and soul. And I wasn't going to include it because I talk about it all the time, but here's the thing, I couldn't not include them in a toxic book video. So anyways, that is it for today's video here. What are we looking at? Actually, is next week already wrap up time? It is. Wow. Okay, so probably next Tuesday I'm going to have my wrap up, or my, no, I might have my TBR up next Tuesday. And then I will have my wrap up probably next Friday then. So anyways, that is it for today's video. Thanks for sticking with me through all the toxicity, and I'll see you when I see you.